Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Sam. I am a doctoral candidate at the University of I'm writing my dissertation on inorganic biology, which I know sounds like an oxymoron. I get it. 5 years ago, I would have gotten a kick out of it too. But, I don't know. World has changed, and there's a lot that I know now that I didn't know years ago. Virtual ecosystems and the creatures that inhabit them do exist. And the reason I know this, and the reason I got into this field, was because I met one of them. Ab initio vincentis, or as my colleagues and I like to refer to him, Vinny. I've seen him in many forms: fungal, viral, humanoid, but he doesn't fully conform to any one of them. Now, this is not to say that he's totally immaterial. He's not, or not in the traditional sense anyways, but you'll know him when you see him, and oftentimes you'll know exactly where he's been. The one visual commonality is his color, which is this unmistakable shade of red. And if this sounds cryptic, it's because I'm not entirely sure how to talk about him. What he looks like, who he is, how he behaves, what he's capable of. So my first encounter with Vinny, I think it was about 5 years ago. What's today's date?
March 15th, I think.
Yeah, 5 years ago, exactly. So a filmmaker friend of mine had reached out. He was working on this art house film of his, and he was processing a huge amount of footage, and his computer kept crashing. And so he tells me that it kept crashing over and over, and he couldn't figure out how to stop it. And then around the fourth or fifth time that this happened, it displayed just a fully red screen. And he couldn't do anything to turn it back on. So he brought it to me, and he was obviously distressed about it. So I took a look at it, ran it through my, normal procedures, nothing. So I decided to take it back to my apartment and continue working on it. So looking through these files, at first they seemed untouched, just, usual art house nonsense. And on several of them, there was this visual of these red roots or vines that would sort of grow over, superimposed over the video, which I just assumed was, another part of the footage. But then I happened to go back and watch one of the clips over a second time, and I realized that the roots or the vines had moved and they were growing faster. Now remember, these are just regular MP4s, so there shouldn't be anything else in the file besides the video. And yet there are these vines moving around and eating the files. So of the 10 terabytes of both unprocessed and processed footage on his hard drive, only about 3% was infected with these vines. But at that point, I had already been able to see how much they had changed. They already looked nothing like when they started, whereas before their growth was erratic, stunted. At this point, they were forming complex shapes, colonies. They looked almost sort of like cancerous cells. And I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how to continue. But one thing that I could tell, as far as it seemed to me, was that they were alive. That's when I got my colleagues involved. Over the next couple months, we dedicated ourselves to investigating and documenting this phenomenon as best we could. But as we were looking at these vines, the last thing that we expected to see was the vines looking back at us, to see the face of a man appear disappearing from the red vines. And at first, we thought it's more video overlay, like the vines. But the face kept showing up over and over again and developing, and eventually it was a full human body that we would see moving around in these videos. And the name Vinny came up amongst my colleagues somehow with Vinny Vines, and started calling him he. And as we sort of continued to observe him, we could see sort of, I don't know how else to describe it, but his identity was blossoming like a flower. And so as his personality developed, he began to develop tastes, preferences. The footage or the media that we would feed him, he wouldn't consume all of it per se, but he would pick and choose. And so while these, initial behaviors of sort of consuming and progressing and evolving were still inherent in Vinny, he had advanced at this point to the point where we could have a dialogue with him. And so at this point, we had years of data on Vinny. We'd been observing him forever, and we got to a point where we decided that we had enough information to make a Vinny of our own. And what we ended up being able to create was not as strong as Vinny per se, didn't have quite, the bold personality, but there he was, a digital organism of our own. And the boys called him Johnny. And so we decided that what we wanted to do was put him in a space with Vinny. In that one instance of Johnny. the team split up. You know, I wrote my book. Decided I should, should get back to finishing my degree. And he's out there somewhere, I'm sure, growing and changing. I probably wouldn't even recognize him anymore. But I'll be honest, part of the only reason, really the only reason, that I decided to do this video is because I thought that maybe he would see me wherever he is. Maybe he would get a chance to look at me the way that I looked at him.